Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where it's about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Motherland, Fort Salem, episode 7. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we open with the whole situation with Scylla being interrogated, and obviously, they're trying to do everything they can to, get her to open up naturally, but then it's kind of like, well, we'll do whatever we need to. It's like, oh, here's food. I was like, really? I thought the whole point would kind of be to starve them. I was like, not unless the food is tapped with truth serum or something. It's like, oh no, in actuality, it's not. It was like, oh, you're eating food, and it's like, nope. It turns out they're feeding you broken glass, and she's like, ugh. She throws it down, but she looks and the plate's empty. It's like, right. They wouldn't go that far. But once again, showing the fact is that they're willing to cross some lines, but at the same time showing that they're not willing to go as far as a spree. But obviously we get a little bit more into, once again, it was kind of early on about why they do what they do. That it is a thing of they don't believe in the militarization. It's more so they don't agree with the way Sarah made a deal. She basically sold witches to be enforced contracts to work for humans. And it's like, why work with these people that hate us? We're at war with each other now. We should only be fighting one enemy, and that's us being war with the civilians, with humans. They fear us. They treat us like we're different. They spent so much time, because there was earlier in the episodes, a couple episodes back, she was showing Rael all the different ways they kill witches, and it's like, Rael was like, well, that was back then. It's like, is it really all in the past? Because even a witchfinder was, once again, doing it. Witchfather showed up and he was talking to Sarah about anywhere him and his boys went, it's like, yeah, people would kind of look at them funny. It's like, once again, in some places they're seen as oh my god, you're heroes, but it's also the thing of, are they really celebrating you because they truly believe in you and what you can do, that you will protect them, or is it more so they do that because they actually fear you? It's almost kind of like that Superman dilemma of right, he's this powerful being, and it's like, you trust that they're going to look after you, but then you also look at this spree running wild, and it's like, well, if they can do it, who's to say that the witches that are supposed to fight for us won't do the same thing as well? So that fear kind of ends up controlling them, because the witch father said a human started crap with one of his boys just for no reason at all, and they're acting out of fear, even suggesting there's rumblings that some government officials are trying to amend the whole Salem Accords thing, so that the government isn't tied to witches anymore, that they don't have this foothold in the world. They still have to answer to humans, but they're still in too much of a powerful position for humans to really trust them, because it's right, we're giving these powerful beings kind of some leeway in our world. We kind of need to kind of keep them ostracized. I mean, to be fair, they've been a part of this for a very, very long time. Obviously, Sarah in particular has been a part of this for a very, very long time. But circling back, that's the main thing for the spree. They believe that Sarah's approach to things is kind of shackling them. I mean, because even Rael said that in the first episode, this whole thing in her mind is it's just another form of slavery. It's we're kind of chaining ourselves to these people, humans to be their masters to a certain extent. So I think it's just kind of an interesting split in ideology, because it's the thing of right, because it's not the spree are the only ones to believe that. Adil and his, people kind of do to a certain extent. They don't align with the spree. They don't align with using their songs to help humans or to hurt them. It's just these songs are ours. We should keep them to ourselves. So I'm sure he doesn't support Sarah and her calls, but I'm sure he doesn't support the spree. Maybe he does. Maybe they do on some extent. I think it's just they want to be left alone, because I don't think they want anyone to use their songs to cause harm or hurt anyone, so. And then you have Acacia trying to get inside of Scylla's head, but she can't. Her defenses are too strong. It's no, you're not going to get into my memories. She tries it twice and kind of fails. But it's yeah, unlike you guys, I would never turn on the spree. And it's Acacia had a reminder. It's yeah, but this is for Salem. The fact of the matter is we're kind of strong together, so don't kind of underestimate us. So there's that. Obviously, Adil's sister, fixers are trying to work on her, but anytime they try and like fix whatever her illness is, it seems like it strikes back harder because it's like latching on. Now the conversation is whether or not this is a human-made thing, because this could be a thing of like, oh, it could have been human-made to be a secret government weapon to which government, whether it's the United States, whether it's a different country, because like their whole situation is supposed to be like because I didn't realize that they're the cell that Petra was referencing a couple of, like 2 episodes ago. Well, was it the Tarium cell? That's them. They, at least the last time, they were like bordering between Russia and China. So like, I don't know if it's either one of those governments doing it. It could be anyone. But the fact that they threw it out there that might be human made is actually kind of interesting, because it could be like a secret weapon to be used against, it could be like, oh, like the government decided like, we're going to stop like messing around, we're going to go to more extreme measures. To be fair, it might not just be the humans, like some of the witches might have come up with this. It might be their way to kind of deal with the spree so they can't, because it doesn't seem like this completely and utterly gets rid of, like, stops them from using their voices, but it kind of distorts it and kind of like the initial, like, I don't know whether it's taking control of her and making her do those certain sounds, like maybe those are songs she has inside of herself that can be weaponized and is automatically doing that because it's supposed to kind of be like, oh, turning like kind of almost like a because it reminded me of very much of a symbiote. There I go jumping into superhero genres, but still it kind of reminded me a little bit of symbiote, obviously being black and everything. You can't help but think Venom. So I was wondering whether it was kind of like an entity where it's like trying to like brainwash her into like losing control of her own powers, or was that it you like how much of that was it using her voice and how much of it was just kind of channeling its own thing through her? I don't know. There are a lot of questions on that front. But no matter what they did, they couldn't do anything to help. Obviously, in this episode, we also had like, well, after everything Rayo did last episode, like people are talking like, oh my God, she's the one that like took all that Sava, and obviously people are talking, but obviously being who she is, you have Abigail being very protective, being like, boo, like, go ahead, got something to say? Oh yeah, shut up the moment I get around, and even during when they were training and stuff like that, I love that like Tally was whoa, oh wait, this could read people's minds, never mind, I'm a join up with Glory, because the last thing she wants is potentially having Rael inside of her head and potentially seeing her memories and all the lies that she's keeping. But obviously like Rael got frustrated, and she ended up putting everyone to sleep, and it's like, what did I do? It's like, yeah, like her way of doing things is what she was taught by her mom, but that's not the canon that they're supposed to be using. It's like we're supposed to kind of use our voice to kind of, because she did it before when she tried to save Porter, because that was also the thing that girl Beth was talking mad BS, and just being like, oh, like, blah blah blah, and oh, like you couldn't save Porter because she was trying to like do what she was taught, but she was just talking mad crap. And I love Abigail coming to her and be like, well, despite everything, she knocked you on your ass. So, and once again, just her sticking up for Rael, and even the teacher being like, actually, that was pretty impressive. Like, granted, if you learn how to control it, like that'd be amazing. But obviously, I'm going to reprimand you a little bit, but don't do it like that again. And it's like, yeah, eventually, all of you will learn how to put people to sleep, but also like, don't wake up too quickly, because if you do, your stomach's gonna hurt like crazy. So that was an interesting development, but just showcasing more and more like how powerful Rael is. I was wondering if it had anything to do with that thing on her finger, because we didn't really dive into like. Because obviously she was getting it examined this episode because her buddy shows up. It's like, oh, you should probably get that examined. And it's like, don't worry about it, Obviously you have Tally and the whole Garrett situation. He's wanting to talk to her. It's like, oh, let's just be friends. It's like, which I know that. Ugh. I made the mistake of being friends with my ex way sooner than I should have been. One particular relationship, like other relationships, it wasn't as bad. And there's at least 2 I can acknowledge, like, yeah, it went super sideways staying friends with her. And one in particular because I was still super into her and she had moved on, and it was a whole thing. I didn't give myself time to recover. I recognized that as an adult, but back then, I was too, like, she was the first girl I fell head over heels for, so, like, that was a whole thing, so. I get that situation, so, like, I'm seeing Tally, I'm like, oh, dude, that reminds me at, like, 18, because that was when our relationship ended, so I'm like, oh, man, it's too real, too close to home. So it's a situation where, like, yeah, I get it, it's not, and he wants to be friends and everything, and he's like, later on even be like, oh, you can tell me anything. He's like, really? You didn't tell her about the whole you getting engaged thing. To be fair, that could have happened afterwards, like it's like at the time he could have legitimately been single, and then like while he was away, it's like his parents could have been like, yo, you're getting engaged. We haven't really dived into how that whole thing works, but the fact is, it's like he's like, yeah, you can tell me anything. So I think Tally's in a vulnerable position right now because of everything that's going on. The secret she's going to have to keep from Raelle. She feels like, because she sees how much Raelle is struggling, and it's like, do I tell her the truth? Like, no, I'm just going to add more to it. But it's also like, I was told not to say anything, but would it be better for Raelle to like, because at very least, if Raelle knows the truth about Scylla, it might tarnish her memory of her, but at the very least, it might mean she'll be able to get over it because she's like, whoa, I'm going to stop mourning this person that ended up being a terrible human being, like at least from their point of view. So I don't know. I just think that's a kind of interesting thing, but obviously for her, it's like her and Garrett start making. I'm like, oh, that's gonna get complicated, you know. I hope, because this definitely seems like it could be one of those situations. Because obviously, it's like Charvel was talking about a couple episodes ago how like that bond doesn't mean as much. It's more of like a traditional thing, but it's not as important. Kind of like it's almost like you can have your side pieces if you want to. So it kind of. I don't mean it's that's me saying kind of very bluntly, but I'm like, it kind of reminds me of a storyline from a video game, Trails of Cold Steel, like there's nobility in that, and it's like, yeah, this dude was supposed to marry someone, but he was in love with someone that was a commoner, and it's like, oh, I told her she could be my mistress because I didn't want to leave her out of my life, and said mistress ended up, killing herself. So like, I kind of feel like this could tiptoe in that direction of like, oh, we can be together, but you're gonna have to be my mistress. We can't be a thing until until this relationship is over. We can keep our thing going. It's going to be complicated, and I think Tally's going to get severely hurt in the process. But it's a thing of like, I think it's also like it's what she wants, but also I think at the same time it's like it kind of helps her kind of distract herself from like everything that's in her mind right now, especially later on because like Raelle was asking her like, oh, like what's up with you? So, nothing, don't worry about it. It's like, yeah, I'm dealing with my own stuff. It's like she's so that's some interesting stuff. I think I'd started talking about it. Maybe I didn't. Adele and Abigail. Which, through their conversation, we learned some really interesting things. First and foremost, that there's ramifications. There are side effects of them using the magic that they use. Like, basically, like, oh, like, being, like, because, like, Abigail's like, oh my god, look at that. Like, one day I'll be able to, get as strong as them and, like, the blasters nearby. And she's like, yeah, I'll be able to crush our enemies. And Adele just kind of looks like, exhausted from it. Because for him, it's like, that causes problems. Because it's like, I think it makes sense to a certain extent because it's like you are messing with the natural order of the world by conjuring storms. I think it's probably a thing of like it's like crops fail and stuff like that because it probably throws off the natural order. So like seasons and weathers are just kind of all jacked up. It's probably not just the ramifications of the storms they use to attack and what that does to nearby ecosystems and stuff like that. It might be a combination of two, but it's like it's interesting to know like there are side effects of it. But like in Abigail's mind, it's like the good that we do it outweighs like the bad that gets caused. It's so interesting because like I brought it up before. It's like magic always comes at a cost. There's no magic for free. There is some equivalent exchange. You have to give a little to get what you want. So I think that's fascinating. Like I'd love to dive more into like why, like what, like more into like understanding fully like how all this different like magic. Because that's also the thing too. They actually don't use the actual word magic because it's different. Like once again, this is like a very different breed of witches. Like I've watched enough like supernatural and fantasy stuff where they'll be like True Blood, the Vampire Diaries universe, which includes the originals and legacies. What other show has witches? Oh, The Order. The Witcher kind of falls in that category, but once again, that's a universe I don't know too much about because I've never played the games, I've never read the book, I've only watched the first season of the show. So, it's just a very distinct witch universe, this particular series. So I think it's fact. I've never seen anything utilize witches in this vein and manner. But obviously also, like, the fact is, it's like the bats, which are like their helicopters. He had talked about the fact is that Adele was like, I avoid them. Like, me and my family know to like hide when they show up because they're kind of like basically the lightning before the storm. They're kind of like the warning flare of like, yeah, some bad destructive stuff is about it because that means like they're coming to the area, they're about to lay down some heavy work and like they're going to cause a lot of death and destruction. So the fact is he has like a negative association with them. Obviously, Abigail suggesting Raelle to help with the healing his sister, which I think is so interesting too, because like, you know, he showcases like well, for one, like his special ability. It seems like basically he's able to kind of lock himself in like a, I don't know, it's almost like that thing of like, you're kind of putting yourself almost in like a pocket dimension. It's like you're kind of in that veil in between like dimensions to a certain extent. I don't know if that's what you would necessarily describe it. It kind of thinks, you know, superhero wise, it kind of makes me think of like the Flash when like Barry moves, or just any Flash, any speedster moves their molecules so fast they kind of blur and they can phase through stuff. It's almost like you're phasing through like the bounds of reality, borderline like a dimension. I don't know. Like I said, maybe pocket dimension would be like the best description of it. But he shows up, but as he's walking forward, Tally could see it, and it's like, whoa, your power of sight is incredible, which we've seen that time and time again. And then like Rael's ability to heal. At first, it was latching deeper to his sister, but then like eventually it spreads out and disappears. Which Rael's like, this doesn't make any sense. At the very least, no matter what, when I try to take someone's illness, at least some of it comes my way. None of it came my way. Which Abigail's like, no, you're just getting stronger. That's all it is. But even I was like, yeah, that's not good. I don't know whether it's because of the thing that was on her finger or what. Because it also did seem like this thing, like every time like something pulled, it would latch onto her stronger. But obviously we also see like later on, was it Dr. Wick is working with like a mushroom, and then that thing that Rael touched like last episode gets consumed by that. So like I think maybe because it was on Rael's finger, it was attracted to it, or maybe something else. Maybe this thing is kind of like a parasitic thing itself. So maybe it's kind of like a fungus, and that is like a mushroom, which mushrooms are funguses, aren't they? I could be mistaken. I know nothing about plants, sorry. But the fact is, you know, maybe that's what attracted it. Maybe it's like the smell of the underworld and the power of the underworld attracted, because like once again, I'm associating that wall has had something to do with the underworld, because apparently mushrooms are tied to that. So, because it was like, oh, that's a mushroom, and it's just kind of like left it at that, even though they were like, there's definitely other people kind of notice like, this might be something else. And Rael's like, what does that mean? Let's not worry about it until we can confirm whether or not it is. So, kind of no information on that front about like what that's really all about. I'm curious, is all of it off of her finger or not? Like, that just seemed like, oh, the fact is it's still there. I'm like, that seems like that could turn into an issue later on. So, but interestingly enough, after like, you know, Adele is so happy about, you know, Rael, what she was able to do, and he's hanging with Abigail, and he shows her his power and everything, and they kiss. Because obviously for him, it's like, yeah, I'm not going to stay here longer than necessary. My sister's recovering. She's probably going to want to leave soon. And I guess that should have been the first sign of, like, what's what. Because it seems like with the way the conversation goes later on down with Sarah and the way Sarah talks to her, it's like, I don't know whether Sarah had it twisted and thought that was like, she was just a little one. I think she's the one in charge. Because she's like, yeah, my brother did his job. So I think it's like, she might be like the next, like either she is the leader, or because she didn't seem like just a normal little girl, that like, not unless she's like super old like Sarah and she just looks young. I don't know, like maybe their songs have kept her, I have no idea. But Abigail's like, oh my god, like imagine what we could do like this, you know, on the battlefield. And that just made him go, and she's like, no, I'm sorry, I'm not meant to. It's just she can't help herself, because she's kind of been raised to be like, everything that we do is for the battlefield. So of course she's going to immediately be like, oh my god, look at what this could do for us on the battlefield. It's like, but for him, it's like, our words and our power isn't, I was showcasing you this because I wanted to show you something beautiful, like this, like we can kind of be away from the world, you know, be something and you could be nothing and everything at the same time. It's something beautiful, and you had to tarnish it by bringing it up and like, oh, how it could be used militaristically. You know, that's not what I'm all about. And none of our powers, none of our voices, so none of our songs should be used like that, but they are. So that kind of tarnished any budding, like, because obviously they're always going to disagree about that to some extent. Like, that's always just because of who she is as a bellwether. Like, she may not always agree with it, but I think it's like, it's kind of ingrained in her to be a certain way about it. And obviously for, you know, Adele and his people, it's like they believe one thing, which, you know, later on, Sarah's talking to his sister, and it's like, yeah, let me learn your songs. It's like, okay. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And they start doing the thing. I was like, okay. I was like, is Adele not going to be happy? Like, the fact is that she's like, yeah, he did his. I was like, just the way, like I said, the way she was acting, she acts way more mature for her age. And then, like, the song keeps going, and it starts having an effect on Sarah. All the plants start dying. I was like, is that supposed to be happening? And it's like, no, like, our songs aren't safe with you. So I guess it was kind of showing her a point of, like, right, like, either kind of showcasing like our songs are so specially tuned that you are kind of an amateur where you can never fully tune them to do what is necessary, or maybe that was just kind of a point to just show like, yeah, we're not passing on our songs aren't safe with you, because if you use them, you're going to use them for war. You're not just going to keep them alive for like tradition's sake and keep like our people alive through those songs. It's like, no, you're going to weaponize it, and we're not going to give that to you. So Sarah didn't look too happy about that. Another angle to this is Rael being brought in by Acostia, because I was like, oh, because the moment they took her, I was like, oh, you're going to use her to like loosen Scylla's mind. And it does work. She's like, no matter what they tell you, like, know that I love you. They're going to tell you all these things, but you can't believe it, like, all of it or whatever. And it's like, just know that I love you. And it's like, once again, it started off as a mission, but she legitimately fell for Rael. And it's like, you know, it's like, no, I don't, basically having her dragged away from her. It's like, no, because you're going to poison her against me, and the next time I see her, she's not going to love me. I think that's what it is. But because of that, Acostia was able to get inside of her head. It's interesting to note that first episode, her mission, it seems like that was her first mission. So she hasn't been at this a long time. Like, she's still a newbie. It seems like this, at most, is her second job, her second ever mission. It's like, that's, like, granted, like, because even the whole Porter thing is like, that wasn't her. That was her trying to, like, keep up her own cover, because the last thing she needed was him poisoning Rael's mind against her, because it's like, I'm supposed to get closer. I'm supposed to draw her in, bring her to the spree side, whatever the case may be. But for her, you know, it's like, right, we're fighting against the villains, you know, that put those shackles around us. So, like, that's the whole, like, it's meant to be against the humans, but it's also meant to send a signal to, like, everyone from Fort Salem and everything, like, everyone that's on Sarah's side of things. But Acostia talks to Sarah about it. It's like, right, got all that information, the address and everything, but then she's like, yeah, but I felt it inside of her. There's a bit of regret. And it's like, I get it. You know, she's like, you always had a soft spot for orphans, I think, being one herself. But it's like, yeah, that's kind of not a matter right now. But it's like, it's showcasing, like, her feelings for Rael are real. And the fact is that she does have some regrets. Like, she, you know, because we saw it, like, we know one of the people in that building was there was at least one little girl. There was probably like a ton of little kids in that building, and she's responsible for. Once again, that's got to weigh on you to some extent. I mean, the fact is, the way she's all running about and everything, you would never think it bothers her, but it does seem like she has some regrets. The question is, are those regrets initial, like, because of what she did, or she's so, like, the way, because she initially left and was kind of smiling, I think she only has regrets now because she spends time with Rael and sees how good of a person Rael is, and she might not agree with everything, but it's like, right, like, I think when she was saying kind of running away, she probably meant running away from everything, because she was trying to run away from what she's done. Like, does she feel regret about the Porter thing? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, that was about protecting her cover and everything, but still, it seemed like she was all about it until she met Rael. It seems like Rael kind of gave her a change of heart. So I think Rael's the main reason why she has any regrets. Maybe that's the only regret she has. Maybe she doesn't regret, like, Porter or, like, the mall situation from the first episode. You know, we don't know what's in her heart, so. But obviously, like, Rael gets brought back to her room like nothing happened. She's like, no. They have her. They're torturing her, which immediately, Tally's like, oh, crap. Because now it's like, now telling her the truth is back in play. Because initially it's like, should I tell you? Probably not necessary because she's dead. Oh, wait, Scylla's alive? Oh, crap. And obviously, Acostia shows up and is like, right, you guys got to get to it. Like, basically, they're going, like, everything's coming down to this. It's like, take all their training and they're putting it to the test on, like, a real mission. It's like, you fail, there's no getting into war college, you're done. Succeed, and everything's going to work out for you. But Acostia is kind of almost like a sigh of like, damn, I guess it's because of all of this, they need to rush. It's like, we need boots on the ground. So this is like, they're expediting a lot of their training, and we saw that kind of showcased early on, but I think they're really pushing it now just because they need more boots on the ground, especially now that they know potentially one of the Spree's headquarters and stuff like that. You know, the whole, like, which, side note, the actress who played Lights in Snowpiercer's in this. I've seen her in something else more recently, and I can't remember what it was. But seeing her in this too, I was like, I'm seeing you pop up in so much stuff. Once again, the whole thing of having to break a few eggs, you know, to kind of make an omelet, and that omelet being like setting us all free from our chains that bind us. So obviously they're on the plane, and so it's like, right, the last thing we see is them all putting on their Sava and, you know, jumping, about to go to their missions, but immediately you're like, yeah, this is a mission where it's like you need to kind of be in unison, and I think eventually something's going to come up. Either Rael's going to end up accidentally reading Tally's mind because it's like, right, she needs help, and it's trying to fix her, and ends up reading her memories and finds out about, like, wait, you knew? So that's going to be an issue. But it's like, or whether it's just Tally's own guilt. Because none of them are really in the right mind state. Tally's got her own guilt. Abigail's the only one that's kind of somewhat got her head on her shoulders. I'm sure the whole, Travell thing still hasn't gotten out of your head. Plus, that whole thing with Adele recently, I doubt that's out of your head. But obviously, Rael's dealing with the whole, oh, I thought Scylla was dead. Now I found out she's dead, and now she's being held and being tortured. Like, what's that all about? So, I'm sure a lot of that's going to play a role in the next episode, because it's like, right, with these distractions and everything, because that was the whole point, you get distracted, you let your emotions get the best of you, it can be disastrous, what Wick told her. So I think that's foreshadow. I mean, well, it's happened time and time again, but I think it's going to become very disastrous. It's this coming episode. Next episode, I think their mission is definitely going to go a little sideways. We'll ultimately have to wait and see. I'm saying this having not seen anything yet, but I'm interested to see where it all takes us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.